a Playlyst original.
Welcome to the Pilot Podcast,
where we review the pilot episodes of TV shows to answer your question, should I watch this?
My name is Mitu.
And my name is BJ.
And this week, we're watching the listener-requested Interview with the Vampire, originally airing on AMC+, and I think still airing there, but also airing on Netflix.
So stay tuned to find out what Mitu would do if a vampire took interest in her.
Whoa. Okay. Until then, why don't you tell us what happened in this first episode?
Sure. Based on the Anne Rice series, Interview with the Vampire centers on the life story of vampire Louis Dupont du Lac, played by Jacob Anderson, as he's retelling his life story to veteran journalist Daniel Malloy, played by Eric Bogosian. It starts in the 1910s when he is an affluent black man who runs into Lestat de Lioncourt, played by Sam Reed.
Ooh.
So, Mitu, have you seen the movie? Have you read the books?
I have not read The Vampire Chronicles. The movie has been on my list for so long because, as you know, I am so firmly Tom Cruise hive, and I think this is one of the movies that he did before he really locked into action movies, which is beautiful. Love a Tom Cruise action flick, but he's a great moody actor too. So this is on my list. I was just scared to watch the movie, and then I appreciate the peer pressure into the show because while I was scared of the show, I didn't want to see like blood, which I know vampires love dearly with respect to that community. But it was still so interesting and so fun to follow. And especially I loved these two central relationships, Louis and Daniel in this back and forth, and then Louis and Lestat as Lestat hunted.
And I think you used a really good word to describe the show, moody.
Yeah.
I think it's a moody environment. It's a dark world in terms of, the type of job that Louis is working in the 1910s, as well as the atmosphere, as well as most of this happens at night because they're vampires.
Logistics.
And it's very sexy as well. There's a lot of chemistry, a lot of flirting, a lot of actual sex.
That's true. It's very sexy. And for Game of Thrones Hive, I was very surprised to see Jacob Anderson be this very sexy character. He was a very buttoned up character in Game of Thrones. And so getting to see him be a man from New Orleans with that Creole swagger and then running the business he ran, which is a brothel, and then engaging in said brothel and also doing some pretty heavy flirting and attraction with Lestat right at the start. It's very juicy.
So let's talk a little bit more about that. We have Louis who is talking to Daniel in the present, and we actually learned that they might have had something going on back in the 70s. And then we're seeing Louis build this relationship with Lestat, who I feel like comes in fast. Like he does not hide his immediate interest.
At all. I love the interviews with Daniel because I think that those are always, when done well, a good device. Like it gives us an interesting time jump between the present of here's how it happened and then the past of what happened. And it always offers us a cheat into the mindset of the person telling the story because he's not only recounting the events, he's telling us how he felt. What is the guilt of being attracted to a man as a man at that time in the body he's in? What is the feeling of the culture of the moment? What are the pressures he's feeling in his family? So I thought that that was a really beautifully done device, especially because specifically Jacob Anderson, I just have in all caps, he's acting in my notes. Like he just really delivered and was a captivating interview subject. And then, yes, that first meeting with Lestat, he described it as his gaze tied a string around my lungs, and that's how I felt watching them.
And that was the first red flag, and
Yes.
that's where the horror, scary element of these vampires come in. Because as we see throughout this episode, Lestat chooses his target and he will get it. He will win.
It's so terrifying. I mean, what is the shape of the red flag emoji on the iPhone?
A triangle?
A fang. Open up your third eye.
You're right. A bloody fang.
It was always right there. Lestat was hunting. And that's what I think is so interesting about their relationship, because Louis ultimately, at least in the beginning, is a victim of the hunt from Lestat.
Mm-hmm.
However, their immediate chemistry, I was so taken by it that I kept forgetting that Lestat was hunting him. Like when they have that first exchange and Louis is almost moved to tears by how enraptured he is by Lestat, it made me get into their relationship, and I kept having to remind myself, Lestat is not a good being. As Louis's brother says, this is the devil.
His brother was right about a lot.
Mm-hmm.
It is tricky because you do see Louis start to develop those feelings. I think he even tries to justify it, especially to his family, as a business relationship.
Yeah.
But we as the audience, and maybe even present Louis looking back, sees that this is not a healthy relationship. Lestat, as kind and charming as he comes across, is actually very controlling and sets things up so it'll always be in his favor.
And the thing is, Louis is ultimately a black man in the 1910s in New Orleans running a shady business.
Mm-hmm.
So he has limited power, and within his home, he has a lot of conflicts and guilt, especially when we get later in the episode, a pretty heavy guilt put on him by his family.
Mm-hmm.
So Lestat, even though what he is offering is scary, and again, he is hunting Louis, red flag, bloody fang coming at him, Louis is still desperate for an escape. It is not as though Louis is in a safe, comfortable place when Lestat finds him.
And speaking of safe and comfortable, I think it's really interesting that he trusts Daniel so much with this story.
Yes.
They attempted this interview process once in the 70s. Now they're trying it again, like 50 years later. And of course, 50 years to Louis is nothing. In fact, he's just wealthier. But it's interesting that like he still thinks of Daniel as someone he can rely on despite not actually talking to him for so long.
I do wonder if we get a bit of that backstory. We know that Daniel is an incredibly successful journalist who even has his own master class. I thought that mini commercial was very funny. It did make me think I was accidentally watching the wrong thing.
100%. I was so confused.
It was a very good fake out. But that does tell me maybe Daniel, when he was a reckless young journalist who had success very early and by his own admission had a lot of issues with drugs and alcohol, maybe he found himself in the wrong room. Maybe he somehow found himself in the wrong den and then came across Louis. And so I am very curious about what is the origin story of this relationship, because also I get why Louis would call Daniel back if he wants to get his story down, and maybe we'll learn why he wants to get his story down, because I imagine there's not that many people you could bring into your world as a vampire and expose yourself as such. And also, I'm very curious about how that meet happened at all in the first place.
You know, two people at a poker table lock eyes and psychically talk to each other.
When Lestat messed with the poker table when Louis was there, that's how I knew Louis was gone, because already that first meet, bad news. But then there is a scene, this is a very light spoiler, where Louis is playing poker with a group of people and Lestat is there. And Lestat does some magical stuff to help Louis win. Louis at this point does not even know he's a vampire, but he's so taken with Lestat that he was like, wow, what an interesting man. I didn't even think to question it. And it's just like, okay.
Which is so concerning. Someone can like talk to you in their head, They can control other people's behavior. And he's just looking at you without opening his mouth. And Louis said, "That's cool.
Yeah, love that.
More, please."
And that's how we just knew he was gone.
And we don't want to give spoilers, but when we say he's gone, like Lestat gets Louis. He gets his man.
He's poof, vamoose.
So, Mitu, I've never actually thought of you much of a vampire fan, but would you watch more episodes of Interview with the Vampire on AMC Plus and or Netflix?
Well, maybe this is my year of vampires because, as you know, I watched and loved Sinners. So maybe I just have to overcome a bit of the fear here and keep enjoying Interview with the Vampire because it's really good. And I would say, even if you're not a horror movie person, this is just a really compelling historical fiction story, but also modern with this interview. And also there's this love story, hunting story in the middle. It's just very interesting. And from what I understand of the plot of the film, there's just much to come, I think, in this series. Because obviously a series gives you more space to tease out a story versus one, 90-minute to 2-hour movie.
Ooh. Okay. I don't know if I was immediately captivated. I like how dark and sexy and moody the show is, but that's also not the type of show I tend to look for.
Okay.
So I would maybe rely on you to tell me what episodes are really exciting, because there's 2 seasons right now. We're catching up. So thank you to our listener who recommended it. We're just getting back into this story that we've missed. And Mitu can tell me where to dive in and when I can dive out.
Okay. Sounds good. I love when your rating is my labor.
Mm-hmm. I'm glad you love it. That makes this easier for both of us.
Okay. What was the question?
What would you do if you were pursued by a vampire?
I would not acknowledge it.
Okay. Deny.
I think that vampire could literally be in my head talking, and I promise you, this is very bad, but I would simply compartmentalize it away. I'd be like, that's a fun new thing my brain is doing. I would sooner go to Talkspace.com and sort it there than with the vampire themselves.
So you got someone in your face, fangs exposed, and you're just zoning out today is Wednesday. Okay.
Oh,
okay.
Especially if some weird stuff happened in front of me. I would definitely just go to my happy place.
Well, for your own safety, I hope you don't encounter a vampire.
Me too. Well, now you're making it real world. No vampires, please. Nobody. If you're a vampire, love to your community. But I'm just not meant for that. I haven't eaten meat in 20-something years. I can't even handle it.
You don't eat meat. You drink blood.
Oh, no, thank you. Pass.
In some media, vampires can drink red things instead of blood.
Oh, that's true. They do the alternative, the fake stuff.
Yeah, so you could be a beet juice vampire.
Yeah, I do love beets.
Or maybe impossible meat. If you suck that out, it'll count.
Impossible meat is too meaty tasting for me.
That's the point.
All right. Let me not bore people with my food thoughts. Likes beets, doesn't really like Impossible Burgers. Sometimes they're overwhelming in flavor. Why don't you tell our listeners about where they can find our TV thoughts?
All of our TV thoughts are captured at bpilotpodcast.com, and you can follow us on all of your favorite podcast platforms.
You can also follow us on social media at The Pilot Pod, and you can send thoughts, feelings, show recommendations, because every other week we do a show recommended by you, our wonderful listeners, to askthepilotpodcast@gmail.com. Thanks for listening.
Bye.